年，那一场席卷全球的金融危机改变了美国金融业的格局。华尔街5大巨头贝尔斯登被摩根大通收购，雷曼兄弟轰然倒塌，美林被迫与美国银行合并，就连摩根士丹利与高盛也岌岌可危。但在美国政府的帮助下，他们止步于悬崖。2010年，危机的余波还未散去，高文临危受命，经济前任麦克钦点出任摩根士丹利首席执行官。5年过去了，作为危机后第一位出任华尔街金融巨擘新掌门人的高文，如何回望当年的金融危机？如何看待危机后日益严格的监管环境？针对雇佣高官子女这一业绩顽疾，又将做出怎样的承诺？带着这些问题，财新传媒总编辑胡舒立不久前专访了高文。
You were at Morgan Stanley throughout the whole financial crisis years, and you became the CEO after the crisis. So, what do you think is the root cause of the crisis?
It's a great question that people keep coming back trying to understand, because we never want to have another crisis like that again. And understanding the root cause is the best way to ensure we avoid it. At its essence, it was liquidity, which means that banks take in money from depositors and other parties and then lend it out in various forms. And when consumers lose confidence in their banks, they want their money back. And you have to have enough of that money sitting liquid to be able to pay them back. And we found out during the crisis that most banks did not have enough liquidity. So as consumers started worrying about the health of the banks, and they saw banks taking losses to their capital, they became concerned about their money. They wanted their money out of the financial system and put in a safer institution. That then created a crisis where certain banks couldn't do it. And that crisis moved on to other banks. Even strong banks suddenly had liquidity issues. So at its essence, Shuli, was a concern around the quality of the institutions, the safety of the institutions, and consumer, not quite a panic, but definitely a lack of confidence.
So, but how or why could Morgan Stanley get survived? Because of the TARP program to help big banks.
The firm survived because we had more liquidity than some of those institutions that failed, and we had less credit issues than some of those institutions that failed. And we also negotiated a partnership with MUFG, Mitsubishi Bank Group, where they bought 22% of Morgan Stanley and injected $9 billion of capital into Morgan Stanley. But then the US government stepped back and looked at all the major 8 or 9 institutions and said, is that enough what you've done? And their answer was no, we're going to require you to take extra capital from the government, which was TARP, but you're going to have to pay it back with very high punitive costs. So everybody was encouraged then to go and raise capital to pay the US government back, which we did.
Can you let me know more about your personal experience during the financial crisis and your steering the Morgan Stanley out of it?
Well, my personal experience was, it was very grueling. I spent many nights asleep on the couch in my office. For my wedding anniversary with my wife, I was supposed to be taking her out to the theater and dinner, and all I could do was drop into the restaurant and say hi to her and then come back to work. So I think we all worked very, very hard. It was very stressful, but at Morgan Stanley we had a great team working together. And since the crisis, that's what I call our period of fragility. When the organization was fragile. Since the crisis, we moved through a period of healing, where we put in place a number of changes to make Morgan Stanley safe and sound again, which it is. And now that the healing period is over, we're in a period of performance.
And 5 years after the crisis, Morgan Stanley's third quarter revenue jumped up 50%, and also the stock price jumped up.
Yes.
And is it simply the good times for banks coming back, or Morgan Stanley did something unique?
We were very clear about some changes we needed to make. We felt that our firm needed more balance, and we went and bought a big wealth management business from Citigroup called Smith Barney. And that makes us one of the top 1 or 2 wealth managers in the world, managing $1.8 trillion of clients' money. That business gave us enormous stability. And when we finally integrated and purchased that business, and the marketplace saw that and saw the price we purchased it at, the marketplace thought that was a very good transaction. That stability combined with much better revenues and earnings is what I think drove the confidence to make the stock price perform as it has this year.
尽管金融危机已经爆发5年，但美国的监管机构似乎要对始作俑者追责到底。近1年来，美国监管机构对包括摩根大通、摩根士丹利及多家银行提起诉讼，因此前不当销售住房抵押贷款支持证券而受到指控的摩根大通，与美国司法部及其他机构达成和解，并同意支付130亿美元天价和解金。这一金额成为美国历史上一家企业与政府达成的最大数额和解金。
And in recent months, U.S. regulators continue to investigate some major banks' practices before the crisis.
Yes.
Do you think is that fair?
If there has been wrongdoing, it is most certainly fair. The job of the banks is to operate appropriately within the society that they serve. And if they've behaved badly, then yes, the regulators should be cracking down on the banks. We have met with the regulators many times and I believe have satisfied them of our behaviors and processes. But if we have had failures, we should be accountable for those failures.
How does the company Morgan Stanley cope with stricter regulation in general?
Well, I think the regulation should be stricter. The financial system nearly failed. We had the worst financial crisis that we've had since the Great Depression. So it's not surprising to me that the political community and the regulatory community wanted change to happen. It's not surprising to me that they wanted these institutions to be more conservative. That makes entirely good sense. We as an institution then adjust to that. We've put in place the risk management processes. My business philosophy is not to wish the world were different from the way it is, but to accept the world that you're operating in and adjust your business accordingly.
So do you support the Volcker rule?
Well, I would have done the Volcker rule differently from the way it's been done. I met with Paul Volcker a couple of weeks ago for lunch, and I have great respect for him as a man who's contributed a lot in his life in public service. But I think the rules are generally becoming too complicated, which is why it's taken so long to produce. We still don't have all the rules finalized. So I would have opted for a much simpler methodology, but I'm not the boss when it comes to setting the rules.
沃尔克法则号称银行业的紧箍咒，是由美联储前主席保罗·沃尔克提出，其核心是禁止银行从事自营性质的投资业务。英国金融时报近期报道称，沃尔克法则的生效时间很有可能被延迟，这是不是华尔街的又一次胜利？
No, I don't think it's a triumph. I think it's a disappointment, actually. As banks, we like certainty. And I'd much rather have the rule and the clarification around the rule now than have it delayed and have more periods of uncertainty. So it's not a triumph at all. The banks are pushing to get this finished, not to delay it.
美国证监会近期致信部分华尔街大型银行，就其招聘行为收集信息。此前，摩根大通因卷入在华雇佣丑闻而接受正式调查。
Relationship hiring is an area recently stirring controversy in China and the United States. But for Western companies which hold the moral high ground, what is Morgan Stanley and your thinking on this?
Well, I think first of all you have to look to make sure that the individuals are talented individuals. If they happen to have come from one family or another family is much less important than do they have the talent for the job. So people should not be penalized because of their background. They shouldn't be advantaged because of their background.
So are you confident at least that for Morgan Stanley it's not going to have any kind of such kind of scandals in?
I'm not looking forward to having any scandals. No, I don't think we're going to have any scandals.
2008年9月，美联储强制摩根士丹利及高盛由投资银行变身为银行控股公司，至此，华尔街大型独立投行不复存在。
At the height of the crisis, Morgan Stanley became a bank holding company, a commercial bank.
Yes.
Is it a blessing or a burden?
Oh, I think it's a blessing. The age of the independent investment bank, a very large independent investment bank, is over. Ourselves and our major competitor both became bank holding companies overnight. That was a process which was essential to ensuring the safety and soundness of the system. I think it's a blessing.
How much commercial operations do you have now?
Well, we're not a traditional commercial bank in the way that some of the traditional global or universal commercial banks are, but we actually have built a deposit business where we're the 10th largest depositor in the United States. We take over $130 billion of deposits into our institutions. So we're functioning more and more like a bank that is also an investment bank.
Investment banking industry has been changed after the 5 years. And what's the trend of it?
Oh, I think it's changed completely. All of the investment banks are now part of large banks or have become large banks themselves, except for very small ones. It's much more regulated. So the investment banks are much more conservative than they were pre-crisis, which is what historically they were.
But it's said that investment banks are kind of art, while commercial banks are very science-like. So what do you think of that?
I think it's a little more science-oriented because these are public companies. It was more art when they were private partnerships.
I see.
And it was only the partner's money that was at risk. When you become a public company and you have the public's money at risk, investors' money at risk, you need more discipline. You need more budget setting. You need more cost management. You need more focus on risk management to ensure you don't have problems. All of these things are now part and parcel of the way these institutions are run.